Hey everybody, this is Ben with Robison Digital Media. Wanted to take a few minutes and talk about two things that are really important for your website, but also they're things that you just don't have time to do as a business owner, and I totally get that. Those two things are security and backups. Now, there are plenty of companies out there that will tell you need to take your security and your backup very seriously, and you really do. But they also want a lot of money to be able to do that. You can go that route if you want to, or you can go with this route that I want to show you. There's two plugins that work for WordPress. Both of them are free. Both of them only take a few minutes to set up. And I'm hesitant to use the term set it and forget it, but they really are kind of set it and forget it utilities that you can use. You set them up once and you kind of let them just go and they do their thing, and you don't need to check on them too much more other than updating the plugins when new updates come out. So let me show you what those two things are. What I've got here is a brand new website. There's nothing installed on it. You can see this is the actual homepage. I mean, it is as basic can be, but it will work perfectly for this demonstration. And so there's two different plugins. So we go over here to plugins and we want to do add new. And the first plugin that we want to look for, if you come over here to search plugins, and we're going to type in Updraft. This is the backup plugin, and it's called Updraft Plus WordPress Backup Plugin. So go ahead and click Install Now, and that will take just a minute to install. And once it's installed, go ahead and click Activate to get it turned on. And you can go ahead and close this out. We don't need to take the tour. I'm going to show you how that works in just a minute. I want to go back and install the other plugin as well, so I'm going to do Add New. And this one is made by a company called iThemes. So you just type in iThemes, and it's this one right here, iThemes Security, formerly Better WP Security. So go ahead and click Install Now on that. And once that is installed, we'll click Activate there as well. Now you notice a couple of different things over here on the left. We've got security, that is iThemes Security, and up here in the top we've got this this message here where we can get a free API key. And we actually want to go ahead and just do that right now. We're going to click Get Free API Key. And you want to put in an email address. You can opt in or opt out. They don't send a whole lot of spam type emails, so it's not that big of a deal to leave it opted in. Click Save Settings. And you'll see the settings were saved successfully. Now there's two ways to view it. You can see there's a lot here in the security features for iThemes. And you see there's quite a few pro features. Both of these all, of course, have paid versions. I don't think you really need them, but if you want them, for example, if you want some of these things that have the pro tag here, you can go ahead and look at paying for the license. I'm going to switch the view here. And as you can see, there's a whole lot to choose from. If you just left it like this, you'd probably be well ahead of most websites. You're pretty well secure, but there are a couple of things to do quickly, and then you'll be done. So right here under Security Check, let's click on Show Details, and we want to secure the site. And you can see everything here we've got a green check, so everything is good. And so we are good to go with the security check. A couple other things to look at. If you open up the global settings, and for the most part you can leave all the default settings okay, but one thing that this will do is when you've got someone who's trying to log in, usually the way it works is they'll use some sort of a program where they can go through and very quickly type in different usernames and passwords. It's called a brute force attack, where they're trying to get in quickly and going through all sorts of different combinations until they hit upon the right one. This is set up so that after a certain number of attempts at logging in, they'll be blocked out for a few minutes and they can't try for a little bit. And if they go multiple times trying to log in and finally get locked out, they will be blacklisted and not be able to log in ever again. And so these are the settings for that. You've got a 15-minute lockout period, so they can try. If they get locked out after trying to log in a certain number of times, they'll have to wait 15 minutes before they can try again. After 3 periods of going through that, they will be locked out permanently, and you can see that it will permanently ban that IP address from the website, so they'll never be able to log in again. And it will look for that. It'll keep logs of that for 7 days. So you can change all 3 of these here if you want to. I typically leave this as it is. I find that's a good setting. That gives you enough of a cushion for a legitimate user accidentally typing in the wrong password. And you don't have to worry about someone getting locked out that you don't want locked out. Now, another thing you can do here is you've got this lockout whitelist, and you could click this button that says add my current IP to the whitelist. You can try this, but the thing is, most people are sitting behind their own router that is giving them an IP address that's not the actual IP address that they're using. So, for example, if I do this right now, that's the IP address of this computer that I'm using on my network, but that's not necessarily the IP address for this computer. So if I were to go somewhere else, to a Starbucks or to a different office, I would get a different IP address. So it doesn't really do me a whole lot of good to use that. So anyway, you can change those as you want to. Like I said, I typically leave them alone. Now the other thing, if you scroll down here, you'll see you've got local brute force protection and network brute force protection. If we open up the local brute force protection, we'll see a lot of those same things that we just saw. But here you can actually set the number of times that a host is allowed to try and log in. And you see max login attempts per host right here, and right below it is max login attempts per user. So the host would be the actual computer. So if I'm trying to log in from this computer and I'm using different usernames, I would be given 5 attempts before I would get that 15-minute break. If I was using the same username over and over again, I would get 10 attempts before I would be locked out again. And so you can change this, but again, I find that this is a pretty good number to set things at. Down here at the bottom, automatically ban admin user. Just as a rule, you don't ever want to have a user called admin. That's kind of a generic user account, and that's one that will quickly be tried. So don't use just admin. You could use something else with admin in it, but don't use admin as a username. You can check the box that says immediately ban a host that attempts to log in using the admin username. That seems like it might be a good idea, but be careful with it, because if you do have an account named admin, you might accidentally lock yourself out. So use that with some caution. And then the last thing I want to go over is the network brute force protection. There's not a whole lot here, but you remember at the beginning I clicked that get API key, and here is the API key. The other thing that it's doing is automatically ban IPs reported as a problem by the network. One of the nice things about iThemes is that it's collecting the data of everyone, every brute force attack that's happening on a website that's being protected by iThemes. So if someone else using iThemes is exposed to a brute force attack, that IP information will be logged and shared with you, so that if that same IP address, that same person comes and tries a brute force attack on your website, they'll instantly and automatically be banned. It's a nice little sharing feature that I really like, and really makes iThemes stand out above a lot of the other offerings. And that's basically it. You can go through some of these other things if you want to, but you don't really need to. So doing this, your website is secure. It takes only a couple minutes to do, and that's all there is to that. Now, the other thing I want to do is your backups, and you won't see backups. You notice there's no backups here over on the left side. It's hidden under settings. Down at the very bottom, you've got the updraft plus backups. So let's go into that. And this is a very simple, easy to use interface. Again, there are some extensions, some premium things. If you want to see the difference between the free and the premium version, you can compare that here. The first place you want to go to is settings. And you see here you've got a backup schedule and a database backup schedule. And by default, it's set to manual and to keep 2 copies of backups. You can change this. You've got a couple different options. And the option that's best for you depends on how frequently your website changes. If you are for example, a news website that's publishing lots and lots of new news articles every day might want to actually go and take a backup every 4 hours. Most businesses aren't changing that often. I usually do weekly and sometimes even monthly. It just depends on how often you're changing the content and adding new things or taking things away. But you can set that to both of them, and I typically do whatever I set for one, I set for the other. I found that 2 backups is a good number. That'll give you a total of 3 backups, so that gives you a lot of different options. Now what's nice is you can save those backups to several different places, and you can see all of those here. The most common ones would be Dropbox and Google Drive and Microsoft OneDrive. But if you've got access to some of these other ones, for example, you've got Amazon, or you can even email it to yourself, you can do that. For this example, I'm going to use Google Drive. And I know that the setup for Google Drive and Dropbox is basically the same. It's a very simple setup. I'm guessing, I've never used any of the others, but I'm guessing that they're all very similar. So I'm going to click on Google Drive. And as I scroll down, there's a couple things I can check. First, okay, so you've got your Google Drive folder name, and it's going to be Updraft Plus. You can't change that unless you upgrade to Updraft Plus Premium. So when you're browsing around on Google Drive, you'll see that folder Updraft Plus. If you go into it, the files that are there won't have terribly meaningful names. Be careful not to delete them, obviously. Don't think, oh, I don't know how this got here or what it is. You just don't want to delete that because you'll delete your backups. The default settings for what to include are fine. I've never had a need to change any of these, but you can look through them and you can change things as you see fit if you have any need to. So you go down here and click Save Changes, and now it's going to kind of redirect me through an authentication process so that the Updraft Plus has access to save things to Google Drive. So you click on this link, and you're going to go through the basic Google sign-in. Go ahead and click Allow. And then when you're done, you click the Complete Setup button, and it will take you right back to where you just were. So now you can see we've got no backups. Gives us a time, but there's no backup. Now, another nice feature with the paid version is you can do incremental backups. That kind of saves on space, and it gives you a little more flexibility when you need to restore, but I don't think it's typically worth the cost, but that is a personal decision. Anyway, the first time, just go ahead and click Backup Now, and these defaults are all okay. This is what you would want. You want to back up your database, you want to include all the files, and you want to send it to the remote storage, which in this case is Google Drive. So we go ahead and click Backup Now, and depending on the size of your website, it might go fairly quickly or it might take a long time. It just depends on how much data there is to back up. You don't want to leave this page while it is doing its backup, and you can see down there at the bottom where it's at. You've also got a progress bar that I've found tends to be very slow moving. And when it's finished, you'll get this message that it's done. You go ahead and click Close. And if you scroll down here now, you'll see that you've got a backup, you've got the date for it, you've got everything that was included, your database, your plugins, your themes, your uploads, and others. And so if you ever needed to restore, you'd simply come back here to Settings and the Updraft Plus folder and go ahead and click Restore, and you would be able to restore from here. Now, if you've set an automatic backup here, you can leave it alone and not have to worry about it, except for should you ever need to actually restore from a backup. But that is Updraft Plus and iThemes Security. That's how they both work. Spend a few minutes getting them set up and then just let them run. And really the biggest thing you ever need to do is just update them when updates come out. And if you're not familiar with that, when you've got plugins that need to be updated over here on the left where it says plugins, you would have a circle, an orange circle with the number of plugins that have an update available to them. You come in here to install plugins, and you could select, it will say, have a message underneath here that says there's an update available and a little bit more information about it. You can select those and then update them. And that's all there is to it. So that's how I would go about making sure that your site is secure, making sure that you've got a backup for those unforeseen problems that can sometimes pop up. This will help you to quickly recover from them and not really ruin your day or your week and slow down your business sales. Hope you enjoyed this. If you've got any questions, please post a comment and I will be happy to respond to you. Thanks.